Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Inside Edge. We've reached the end of the season for many of you, and recently I spent the end of the season with a fantastic organization called the Minnesota Baseball Association. Now, they're better known affectionately as Minnesota Town Ball. It's called that because the majority of the hundreds of ball clubs in the state, they are located in towns with populations under 5,000. It's quite the slice of Americana, and it is thriving. Each small town ballpark is lovingly cared for by volunteers, and every one of their parks that I've seen so far are beautiful in their own special way. Financially, it's a very strong organization, and it's amazing to see how these small towns are able to fundraise to achieve their goals. Some of these towns have populations well under 1,000. Now, I thought it was important to introduce all of you to the league, so during their championship tournament that spans the last 3 weekends of August, I had a conversation with 4 of the MBA's board members. Now, what they've done to re-energize their 102-year-old organization is very similar to what I did with the Little League I was involved with, and I talked about that in my very first podcast this year back in March or April. If you haven't listened to it, go back and give it a good listen. So sit back and listen for our conversation here, and I hope it's inspiring to you folks and to help your organizations, your facilities, and your fields. So without further gibberish from me, let's head out to Gaylord, Minnesota. Welcome, gentlemen. And it's been a pleasure we've been involved, Durant has been involved with Minnesota Town Ball for this is our 3rd year. And it just absolutely amazes me what you guys do. And the ballparks that I see and the fields that I see and all the volunteers that work. And we wanted to kind of expose you folks to the rest of the world and let them know a little bit about your operation. Minnesota Town Ball is basically Minnesota Baseball Association, right? And it's an amateur association. Now, I've been told this is the biggest association in the country. Is that factually correct?
I would think it's factually not confirmed, but we'd all bet our bottom dollar on it.
Well, let's get some introductions going here, and we'll start with the prez over here. Mark, why don't you just give us your name and obviously when you're the president, when did you get on the board, and how long have you been involved besides that in the organizations?
Mark Forsman, as Paul alluded to, I'm the president now. Started on the board in 2000. I was 38 years old. It has changed quite a bit from when I once started on the board. Before that, I managed our local team and refurbished our baseball field in the city of Dassel. And I've been at this since I've been 16 years old. So
started as a player and worked your way up to president.
Player, manager, yep.
Okay. I'm Mike Nagel. I'm the treasurer. I was started out basically in baseball in 1982 in Litchfield. Moved to Bird Island and been managing that team since 93 and basically got on the board about 15 years or in 2015. Same story. You get sucked into the vortex and you don't retire. This is your life. You love it. All of these guys, we all build our fields. We finance the parks. We manage the teams. It's just what you soup to nuts. Yeah, absolutely.
Dennis Brennan from Hinckley, Minnesota, vice president of the board. I've been on the board originally in 1987. I did have 3 years off in the mid 90s and then back on in 97. So this will be my 36th state tournament. Go back to many state tournaments. When my dad was on the board, I used to be the ball boy, chasing balls at the tournaments. I said about when it was one site, and it lasted for 11 days. And it was 1959, my first year as a ball shagger there. So I've missed one state tournament since that time in 1997 or 1977 at Wadena. They hold out rain. Going back to Hinckley, I've been involved with Hinckley baseball since 1961. I was a bat boy. Signed my first contract there in 66. Played until 2004 was the last game I played in. So was the groundskeeper there for 50 years. My wife and family members ran the concession stand, helped cut grass, stuff like that. And it's been our life. So
I think there's been a Brennan on the board ever since it's existed pretty close.
Well, since my grandpa started it back in 1924, he was one of 4 men that did this. He would ride the train from Hinckley to St. Paul, where they had the meetings, and then started up the first state tournament in 1924. And he was on the board till he passed away in 1941. And my dad got on the board in 1955, and he was on the board until he passed in 1985. And I went on in 87, and outside of 3 years in that time period, I got on board.
So we could really rename this league. The Brinkley League.
Yeah.
Brinkley Baseball.
The Brennan, yeah, he's on the Mount Rushmore of amateur baseball.
Yeah.
That's why I went before him. Stika's got to go after him.
He's the junior member. Yeah.
I am Mike. It's my first year.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Mike Zwaska. I'm from New Prague, Minnesota. I joined the board in 2022, so much shorter of a time, if you will, since Dennis. But yeah, baseball has been a part of my life since I was young. I'm from St. Patrick, Minnesota, which is near New Prague. And we have Bond and Field there, and it's been part of my family for a long time. My dad grew up in that area. My grandpa was part of our association many years ago as well. And I helped maintain the field there, have for about 20 years or so, involved with our youth program, our adult programs, and just making sure that everything is going well there and trying to improve our facility and move things forward. As regards to the NBA, I was a league officer for a few years before this, and then joined, like I said, in 2022, and I've enjoyed my time. And yeah, I'm certainly the junior member of the group at this time.
And he also umpired in our tournament.
Yeah, I'll fight for.
This is the 102nd year of NBA, right? Correct. And Mike was telling me yesterday morning, or Doc, however you want to be known, was telling me a great story about how this whole league started. Who would like to retell that story for the listeners?
Well, he knows everything about history.
You know, because it's called Minnesota Town Ball, or well, it's kind of that's a nickname. It's a nickname for it, but it's in my opinion, it's true. Right down to its core, because of there's 270 some odd ballparks around the state. Most of them in towns less than 5,000 people. Can you explain how this all got started?
Well, to what I've been told anyway, back in the early 1900s, there was town ball teams prior to the organization of the Minnesota Baseball Association. In fact, I think it used to be called the Minnesota Amateur Baseball League, not association back then. And I've got records when Hinckley had a fire in 1894, and there's records in Hinckley of them playing prior to 1894 up there. So, I mean, there was organizations going on. But the actual organization happened, of course, in the 1920s, and then I believed they changed, like in the 40s, that it went to the Minnesota Baseball Association Incorporated, and been that way ever since. So, I mean, back then, the lifestyle was there wasn't much going on. You know, baseball was. I think that one time there was over 700 teams that played in the state of Minnesota.
So Bucky Larson, before it started, he said, people were gravitating out with the railroad and the steam engines. Every 6 miles, they needed to load up with water. So there was a town. And so as the population grew farther and farther with the railroad, on Sundays back then, you didn't do anything. So everyone stopped working. They played baseball. And so you'd play the town next to you, and you'd put a pot of $20, which was a lot of money back then, and the two towns would play each other. And that's what you did on Sundays. And yeah, I think at that time in the heyday, probably in the 50s, like you said, probably 700-800 teams.
Yeah.
And that's how you can come across when you drive through Minnesota. You can stop at almost every small town has a ball field or a ballpark, and many of them are occupied now by town ball teams. Perhaps not as many as in its true heyday of having 700 teams, but still, I mean, you're just shy of 300 ballparks. Today is phenomenal, and a lot of these parks are maintained by volunteers. If not all of them, probably in the big cities, I imagine their park and recs are maintaining those fields, but mostly small town parks are being maintained by volunteers. And the ones that I've been to, I'm in awe of being involved in Major League Baseball in my early career, and then sliding backwards in my career into Little League Baseball and maintaining fields at that level. It's something that I really appreciate. And there are some of these parks that I've seen, and I'm not saying this just to build things up, but there have been some fields that I would say are as good and in sometimes better condition than some of the minor league parks I had to. Just phenomenal for volunteers that are doing the work that they do. And it just really amazes me. How many, so you have 3 levels or 3 classes, correct? How are A, B, and C? How are they broken down? How are teams classified?
Well, we have a criteria system now, and before it used to be they were just put into a class, and if you won the state tournament or first or second, you got moved up into the upper class. We didn't think that was fair, so we built a criteria system based upon population. So population would be based upon your city limits or your school district limits. You could choose either one. So then the next level is player points. So if you go out of that area and they played college baseball, you accrue points that goes on your population totals.
The radius.
The radius, yeah. We have a 30-mile radius everybody has a 30-mile radius. And if you go beyond your school district or your town, and you get
Another player, yeah.
And right. You get points for that. And then the third level is success. So when you go to the state tournament, you accrue points for every round you play in the state tournament.
Yeah, it used to be literally where the board kind of get together, look at the team, and say, hey, we think that they're a B team or a C team. And so the board kind of had a lot of control over that. And we felt over the years that moving towards a more quantitative way of
I'm sure that invited a lot of
Debate.
A lot of debates, spirited debates, for sure.
It used to be easy. It was one class.
Yeah.
And when did that change?
Mid-'80s, mid-'80s.
And then it split into 2. And like Mark said, if you finished first or second in the lower level, you got bumped up to the top level and basically spent your life in purgatory. Dassel's a tiny little town.
Yeah.
And they had a really good team in the mid-'80s.
Lower 90s.
90s.
We're in B for.
I mean, Dassel's 2,000 people?
1,400.
And now they're playing against Minneapolis and St. Paul teams for 20, 25 years and did well. But that's a kind of an anomaly.
It's interesting when you go to the tournament and you see the Class B, Class C, and Class A games, and noticeably there's a lot less fans at the Class A games than there are in the Class B and C games. Class A, in a lot of cases, are teams that are in larger population centers. And I'm sure that's due to the distraction of everything that goes on in those cities that prevents people from coming. They don't really understand. It's like those people really don't understand town ball like the Class B.
And I think part of it, too, is you don't make a connection with the ball team.
Yeah.
So you have local kids playing local baseball. A lot of these city teams, big populations, most of the fans don't even know.
Yeah, but you're exactly right. There's just so many other things to do, and it's harder when you're the small town and you're the baseball field, baseball team. You're kind of the big deal in town. Everyone's aware of you. Right. When you're a team in Minneapolis, there's plenty of other things.
There's no in a small town. There is no entertainment.
Well, it can be, but
so the ball teams are the entertainment, and that's why I think you see so much more volunteerism and and people are willing to give up the money to help make it better, because that's where they go to drink beer on summer nights and watch a ball game and have some fun and talk to the neighbors and the people in the area. And
We talked about it before. It's the civic pride in the cities.
Yeah.
You've got the city people, the workers, they take care of the field. Well, if you want to have a field in Bird Island, you better get out there and do the work, because there's just the infrastructure just isn't there.
Yeah.
And that's where if you want something, you have to have the civic pride, the volunteerism to get it together. Like in Clinton, Minnesota, the Adelman family, there's dad and 4 or 5 brothers. They all start on the team. It's a town of 50 people. And I think one of the reasons that the criteria and the 3-class system came together is 150 of our teams are in towns probably under 1,000 people. And that's the grassroots of amateur baseball.
Yeah.
Well, with 2 classes, they have very little chance to succeed or advance. And it's expensive. Their bats cost the same amount of bats as the teams in the cities do.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the mowers, everything. Well, they just don't have the money. So if you can go ahead and help them have their own smaller C-level tournament, they have a much better chance. Hey, let's stick around. But if you're going into the cities and playing with a family and your uncles and your brothers, it's a lot tougher to compete and less likely to stay and want to keep participating. So,
what is the age range of players in this organization?
Whatever they want.
I mean, they can start as young as
14,
16.
and you've had players play as old as,
I think 7. Well, there's
There's the 70s or 80. I mean, there's an 80 on a roster per se.
Yeah,
But,
Tim Clarkson, 83.
May play a couple innings this summer perhaps. But wide ranging. I think the breakout is, obviously we're heavy in our 20s and 30s. But we have players who are still competing in the state tournament in their 40s, into their 40s and low 50s. But young as young can be, perhaps 16.
so because of that, you also get generational.
Oh, yeah.
In these small towns, that there'll be names that are historic because they've had several generations.
Watkins used to have a team, and if you weren't a guy slinger, you better not even try out. The whole team was guy slingers. I mean,
It made an argument for numbers on the back since all the names were the same.
Exactly. Better have a number. Even this, but you can share jerseys too.
Well, that's true too.
This year's tournament has, I think, a couple of father-sons in it that I'm aware of. It certainly is generational, and the youngsters can learn from the wily veterans. And
The youngest one I remember through the years was Joe Serratori signed his son as an 8-year-old. He was the bat boy, but he wanted to get him in. At that time, I think it was only 3 games, so he could always come back to that team because his grandfather gave them to come back to that team once he got to an older age. Yeah. But if he was 8 years old when he signed him, so
we have some rules that we've changed to try to help the little towns. We have, a heritage rule where if you move away and you want to come back and play with your family, you can do that. We also have a descendant rule now. So if your kids move far away and your grandchild is a really good player or just wants to play on dad's or grandpa's team, they can come back to their roots, so to speak, and play. And in rural Minnesota, you may be looking around for, anybody just to fill a spot because you just don't have it.
But what a great way to keep families.
And that's why it's great. Yeah. It is a lifestyle. It's not just in the cities. It's more of, I'm going to use this to get into college or do whatever. It's a stepping stone. Where here I want to play on this team. We have a kid on our team. His dad played for many years. He lives in the neighboring town. He wears his Bird Island jersey into school. I'm not playing I'm going where my dad played. It's cool.
Yeah. So this is your 101st tournament?
second.
102nd tournament. I mean, this is a big deal, this tournament. You have a reveal show like the NCAA basketball tournament. How would you say this, do you think it really affects people to the point where everybody's sitting in there watching that reveal show waiting to see where they get When did you start doing the reveal show?
This is, you and I kind of sat down and came up with it. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, so it's pretty recent.
fresh.
Yeah. You know what?
And it's all kept very secretive
Oh, yeah.
until that point.
To preface this, our board has made some changes. It used to be pen and paper, paper contracts, and probably about when I started to get on the board is that when you started to switch to, we started using contracts and computers. And now we have our own software, our own programs to manage teams, the criteria system, so managers can go in and figure out where they're at. If they, you might going to break a threshold to go up to the next level, that type of thing. It's pretty organized and it's pretty complex when you get into all that kind of stuff.
Do you get a lot of attempts of cheating with the whole point system and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
It's hard to do, though.
I'm sure it's hard to do.
We don't call it cheating. They just made it.
Back in the paper days, I imagine it was real easy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's hard to post date, or you could post date your contracts pretty easily with pen and paper.
Yeah, and years ago there was more efforts to get around the rules, perhaps. But today, the issues that we're encountering are more administrative. I don't think they're blatant cheating per se, but there are a lot of rules. It's quite complex, and we try and help the teams and manage that. But there are issues that may pop up, but we're trying to minimize them with our software.
And now that it's online and we have social media, if anybody does something that's even slightly, raises an eyebrow, it gets caught pretty quick.
But I think our rules have enabled us to be such a strong organization.
That's what it is.
It allows us to be, that strong over time and prove it's proven that.
The tournament is, you have 4 host sites. You start out with 4 host sites, and then it's 3 weekends. The last 3 weekends of August, leading up into Labor Day weekend, which is the big championship season or championship games where each class is crowned with the winner. What do you typically see for total attendance over the course of your tournament these days? How many people are you pulling in?
We were talking about that last night.
Yeah.
So back, I don't know, in 16 and 15, we were, you were 16 to 18,000.
We hosted in Bird Island in 2010, and we had 10,000 people
Over the 3 weekends.
That was the whole tournament.
Yeah.
But I think our president has very much wanted us to brand this and market this. Our clothing now, this is the old style. That's our new brand. And we want people to hear about it and see it. Oh, that's Minnesota amateur baseball. But now we're up 25 to 30.
25 to 30 is our goal.
That's a lot of fans. And of course, I'm sure
And it's a lot of volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
These people, they work their
takes a
heart
lot.
and souls out when we leave, they work. As soon as the games are over, they're cleaning garbage cans out and sweeping out the grandstands. And it's amazing. And the pride they have in their fields and their community.
Well, and that's the thing. It becomes such a competitive thing with all these small towns.
Yeah.
And if somebody gets something that somebody's got, then everybody's going, we got to get those.
Yeah.
Or we got to do that to our field.
So I hate touting his horn, but their Dassel's field was kind of the first one to say, look, we're going to take it to this next level in a little tiny town, and we're going to have a field like none other. And creative, they have amazing people that work on the field. The facility is amazing. Well, the rest of us go, well, if they can do it, why can't we? And so, our field started as basically we were all sandlots.
Yeah.
And you get, well, I want to have my field be better than theirs. And it's kind of one-upmanship. You want to make it better.
It's competitive field wise too.
Yeah, and back to the tennis real quick. We have a ton of other coverage. We have tons of local radio stations that come to cover these games. We also have a local in-state, streaming service that broadcasts all of our games. And so
On television.
Yeah, well, on streaming services,
Streaming services, yeah.
And Fox 9.
Right. So what we're doing the past few years is we're making that audience even larger. So while they may only be 25,000 people at the event, there are probably thousands more watching at home or listening on the radio at home. So it becomes more of a, not just a being there.
And not only are you doing that, but that actually creates recruiting.
Sure.
Because kids see this and go, oh man,
Yeah,
what's up?
it's a bigger deal.
Uniforms they're wearing. Or look at the nice fields they're playing at. Or man, their games are on the radio. Their names are,
Well, and then bring your little league team in and you announce them with the players. And
Yeah.
you get a run out on the field.
Absolutely.
And
It's
they're
just,
like, I want to be there
it's,
someday.
this is cut right out of the Major League Baseball, playbook,
Yeah.
what you're doing.
And you alluded to it with the reveal show. I mean, it's just part of our way to build a brand and build up more people aware of town ball. And like Fox Night is another one. They come out to 6 different fields throughout the summer and do different spots. And, it's any way we can to grow that.
But going back to that whole thing with where if one team does something that's pretty spectacular with their field or their facility and other people see it, it's just like they want to go. That's exactly what happened with me in the Little League back in Madison. You and I have talked about this kind of thing. You do something and you actually raise the bar of everybody else. And everybody else, people say, oh, we can't do that. And then you show them that you can do it. And then suddenly they go, hey, I think we can do this. So, you're helping to continuously elevate the game of baseball, which in a lot of parts of the country have been hurt by, I think a lot of people have given up sometimes on baseball and baseball fields because it's hard work to maintain it. It's hard work to maintain a baseball field. You've got 2 different surfaces to take care of. And the dirt is the one that really kills you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand how to maintain that infield skin. But once they get the hang of it, it's a breeze. It's just that so many people don't want to put that extra effort into it. But when you do, it's magical. You walk out on these fields out here, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And that's, again, another part of the draw of helping to get kids to play. As I always say, that one of the great secrets is parents want to send their kids to play on nice fields. If you've got crappy fields, you're going to have a hard time getting the kids to play the game. But if you're maintaining these fields at a nice level, it's going to be so much easier to draw kids in to play the game and learn to appreciate it.
Getting back to the reveal, so just one point. So the first year we did it, we really didn't know what to expect. And our website crashed because we didn't have enough bandwidth, I think is the proper term. So I think our website page gets roughly 3 million hits a year. Now, most of it is from May until
during the season.
September. Yeah. But we have social media on there and people are chatting and talking about different.
Oh, yeah. Watching the reveal show this year, you're watching everybody commenting as you're going down to the. It's just kind of interesting to watch that reaction by the people. How did the organizations struggle with finding volunteers?
Yeah.
To help out. In small towns, it's not easy.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that we've always talked about amongst the board is leadership. If you have strong leadership or a strong leader to kind of steer the ship in their community, things can go very well. You can have a broad base of volunteers and help. And we see those communities all the time that are very successful. They have that broad base of volunteers. When that person or that group may step aside or they've aged out or they've just kind of exhausted themselves over time and they leave, if those communities can't backfill or find others to step in, they begin to kind of fall into disrepair a little bit. So I think whether it's on the field in regards to managing and coordinating the team, those leaders are important, but also then the off the field things are just as important. If those things fall to the wayside, things can go poorly. But
as I said in my initial podcast of this series, talking about what I did with the Little League, you have to have a dreamer and somebody who's setting the course for everybody to follow. And if you lose that director or whatever you want to call them, dreamer, you can fall apart real quick.
Right. That's any organization, right?
Exactly. So how do you folks go about picking the with 277 or whatever it is ballparks around the state currently in the NBA? How do you go about picking locations for the tournament each year, and how far out do you do that?
Our last bid, I think we went out 6 years, and then currently to 2028. It's Red Cannon, and Weesville. I think the 3 sites. And we've talked this year about we need to put it out for 29 and 30, probably at least for 2 more years. So they have time to prepare for the tournament. I mean, there's things you got to plan out a few years ahead of time.
And that's what's interesting to me about this, because you give them that kind of lead time, which you often find out of these teams, just because I've talked to, several of the groundskeepers and other people associated with some of these ballparks, the amount of work that they put in,
Right.
2, 3, 4 years out, knowing that they've got the tournament coming, and a lot of it is infrastructure and facility and field upgrades that they, so it instigates.
But they first have to do all the fundraising.
Yeah.
So once we're going to have the tournament, well, now they got to raise all the money to pay for the stuff that you're doing. In our little fields, we don't go to the city and say, hey, I need $200,000 for new lights. If you want new lights, you pound the pavement and find somebody to help you and donate, which, I want to just tell our corporate sponsorship. We came up with this idea. We've had it for about 5 years, and these are the things that make these little towns viable. It used to be they had to pay for all the umpires and they had to pay for all the hotel rooms, and you couldn't make as much money, and that's how they can reinvest into their communities, their fields. Well, now with corporate sponsorship, we can go ahead and offset a lot of the costs that they used to have, and it makes it a lot more viable for a team to say, you know what, maybe our field isn't quite ready, but we can now make enough money. We're going to invest in it and put it back in our fields.
Yeah, I think a good example too is in 2018, New Prague hosted the tournament, and it was their first time hosting it. And we got the bid, I think, in 2013. And at that time, New Prague's field wasn't the strongest field around, right? And we knew we had some things to update and change there. And we began talking to the city council, the park board, the various teams that played on it and in the city. And over time and working with the city council, because some city councils do buy into this, raised nearly or put in about $1 million into that facility leading up to 2018 and really changed that ballpark tremendously and improved amenities that had kind of gone to the wayside or kind of fallen in disrepair over time. And now that ballpark in New Prague is way better than it was previous to hosting a state tournament. And they're now set for a generation due to that kind of input of resources, time and effort and revitalization. So these tournaments allow some of these communities to really turn their ballparks over and get more attention on them and change on it better.
So then the question comes back then, okay, so you're talking about New Prague here, who you said didn't have a great field to begin with.
It was a good ballpark, don't get me wrong, but there are things that have fallen into disrepair, gotten a little old over time. It kind of needed that refresh, especially for a state tournament with so many eyes on it, and allowed that to happen.
So the question comes back then, what makes you choose a town to be a host?
Well, they have to come and bid. So we'll put out a process. We're going to bid, I believe it'll be next fall.
Winter, spring?
Yeah.
Winter headlines.
Next year, we'll go ahead and bid for probably like Dennis said, the next 2 years. And so the teams can go ahead and apply.
And then we have one night where they come in and present why they should get the bid.
So we're looking for communities that usually are closer together, kind of a cluster of communities that are somewhat close together, have perhaps hotels in the area, decent dining options, or just kind of places to go from the folks that are coming to town. We want these ballparks to be, on our list of pretty solid ballparks already. We want them to be in good shape for the most part. We want to know about them.
They have a good history.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the key thing is just kind of being someone in a cluster of 3 or 4 communities that folks can get around to easily.
Like maybe all within a county or something.
Somewhere, yeah, exactly. Just folks that we can rely on and making sure that they have the right leadership that we trust to work with them, that we know that the ballparks aren't maybe perfect right now, but in time they'll have the strong leadership to get things done and be good sites for us. We've had great success.
Yeah. It's quite a deal now. You used to be, we were looking for people to bid. Now, the reason we went 5 years out last time is everybody that bid had great proposals. And we're like, not all these sites deserve it. So let's just plan it out based on who's the most ready. And we went all the way down. Everyone that bid, I believe, got
No, there's 3 that, oh, wow, sorry.
Keep track. But if you have to,
There's got to be a loser somewhere.
yeah, and you have to have a relationship. If somebody shows up to bid and we don't even know who they've never been to them. We have meetings every, 5-6 meetings a year. Some of them are for overnight, and we sit and have workshops to talk about what we're going to do. And they're open to the public. Well, if someone, Joe Blow, shows up to the bids and they've never been to a state board meeting, probably not going to have a real good chance of getting a bid if I don't even know who you are.
How about a little payola? Would that do it?
Well, we ended up there. We had $10,000 worth of pre-sold tickets, and we were new. They didn't know me at all, and I went and we didn't get it. And so I said, roll up. They said, roll up your sleeves, keep coming to meetings, and we did 3 years later, and the board foolishly trusted us, and we got a bid, and that the state puts you on the map. You get a tournament, now you're in the club, and you can and it just keeps rolling.
What kind of financial advantage is it for these towns to host one of the tournaments?
Well, he has a different with New Prague. He had a lot of help from the city. So our association had to go get a loan at the bank to build our grandstand. So we're betting on the state tournament doing real well. So they can make anywhere. It's all hard to work. We get corporate sponsors in the towns. So, and Dassel we had anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 to make some. If you do a good job.
So
the site.
Go ahead. I was just going to say there's kind of two avenues. We have a booklet, and you can get corporate sponsors to be in your ad booklet or your tournament brochure. And then the other part is just the revenue of people coming to the tournament. We had it, we're farther out with the Rocks and Cows, so there just isn't as many people coming. And that's one of the factors of where we're going to do this, like you said, is, well, geez, that's a long haul from the cities. You don't have a lot of people. So there's 2 ways you can make your money.
The ticket revenue comes back to the state board, and we redistribute some of those dollars back to the teams who are in the tournament. But as it pertains to all the concession sales, the food, the beer, the hot dogs, the hamburgers, the apparel, that sort of things, and like you mentioned, any sort of corporate sponsors that they've gathered within their town area, that stays.
That's what I was trying to find out.
Yep.
What does the board collect?
Yep.
What does the association collect for itself? And then what does the city town?
Yeah, typically the board will take 35% of the gate proceeds and use that to for our operations, and the rest is a game share. So every game that you play, it's varied like $365 a game you get. So every game you play, you get that check.
Which is very much, again, you're borrowing from Major League Baseball and how we do World Series shares. In very similar manner.
Another advantage to the board through the corporate sponsorship, now we get away with league dues and team dues. Another advantage to every team in the state doesn't have to pay this dues anymore.
Yeah.
And it just goes back probably into their ballparks and stuff. So it was a great deal to incorporate this with our association.
I was last weekend. I was working let's see, where was I? Was it Brownton? I think it was Brownton. I was at that game or that ballpark last Sunday, and I was talking to the groundskeeper there, and I asked him. I said, because he was rambling through all the upgrades they did to the facility ahead of the tournament. I said, well, let me ask you. I said, how do you fund all this? And he was telling me about it, and then he was telling me about one thing that they pull pretty substantial money from called Pull Tab.
Yeah,
which I had never heard of. But what a great fundraising thing that they have. And one of the things that this podcast does is we try to help the recreational level organizations who have ball fields or associations like you folks who are trying to run their programs. If you talk to people all the time from around the country, they're always crying that they need money. And here you guys seem to have mastered on a pretty good scale over the course of the last however long that you guys have been improving this. I've done a pretty good job of being able to make yourselves in a better financial situation. So it was interesting to hear the description, and I didn't quite totally understand the pull tab. Could anybody explain to me the pull tab?
He's a ripper.
I have to explain the pull tab because we might have people who might want to try this.
So my org does not have them, but what they are, so Minnesota has charitable gambling. So charitable gambling allows, I think, 501(c) organizations to sign up to be, pull tab sellers, if you will. So the organization runs the pull tab thing. So they're sold like in bars typically, and so the bar maintains the selling of the pull tab. So what a pull tab is, what they actually are. Like it's like a little.
Well, when he said it, I thought he was talking about the pull tab off a can.
No, so it's
That's how old I am.
You gotta get out more.
That's like
You're off the ball field.
It's a piece of cardboard with usually 3 strips on it. It's almost like a little mini slot machine, but a piece of cardboard. And you pull the 3 strips off it usually. And if you get 3 cherries in a row or something like that, you win a certain dollar amount. And it can vary from $2 that you won all the way up to maybe $500. Yeah, $1,000.
Depends on your price range of pull tabs.
So you redeem it in the bar. So the bar maintains all of that cash, if you will. But the organization behind the scenes who has the pull tabs in that organization has to do all of the state auditing.
Legalese, yeah.
And so long story short, the organization who is behind all that, it's a percentage of all of the revenue that is gained from the sale of those pull tabs. And some organizations do very, very well in that.
I was shocked when he told me what they had pulled back. And I was like, that's a hell of an idea.
That's how we did it. The Bird Island Lions have the pull tabs. And when we decided to do the tournament, the school uses the field. It's city owned. And then the Lions were the big charitable gambling organization in the city. So our ballpark is Lions Memorial Park. And so we went a third. And they all bought in, and that's how we did our first major renovation. And then the second one was when we had the state tournament. And so that's it. But we get a percentage. The Lions will give us a percentage of stuff if we need stuff. But
we're still doing pancake breakfasts. They're doing raffles.
Oh yeah, they're all kinds of things. That was just a unique one that I had never heard of. That was pulling in some pretty good money. What's the most successful fundraising thing that you guys have heard from some of these organizations? Is that probably the biggest one?
Well, I mean, the other avenue is, when you build your park and you have these improvements, you sell like a grand slam, a home run, a triple, and people in the town sponsor to be on that board.
Yeah, I hate to say my own ballpark, but in St. Patrick, we had a $500,000 capital campaign that just wrapped up. We began in 2021, and we had a goal of about $750,000. And when we set that goal, I thought, we are crazy. We are nuts. We are never going to raise that kind of money. And while we didn't raise that kind of money specifically, we did raise $500,000,
which is still a lot of money.
Right, from just local community folks, everyday people, local businesses. And so we take great pride in that because we're somewhat of a small community amongst other larger communities. But it can be done. So we raised $500,000 just on, hey, we're trying to do some major improvements here, new lights, new dugouts, some ADA improvements, and communities buy into that.
Yep.
And real dollars come in. If you would have said to me 5 years ago that we will be somewhat successful or very successful, not reach our goal, but reach $500,000, I would have said, well, you're crazy. Like, there's no way we could do that. But we did.
Again,
those things can happen.
And that's that dream. That's that dreamer on the board who says we can do this, and keeps the nose to the grindstone and keeps everybody focused. If you don't have that, it'll wash away.
Right.
But what it also does is it makes other towns stand up and go, man, they raised $500,000. If they can do it, we can do it.
Yeah, exactly. If we can do it, they can do it.
One other thing is like our fields. I'm not sure about Bonner, but we have sponsorship signs on the outfield fence. It's free billboards. And so, and it's a good way for big companies that maybe don't have, a lot of money, but they go ahead and say, hey, I can give you $200-300 a year, put a sign on the fence, and we mention them during the games, thank our sponsors, that kind of thing. But the tournament here, I know Hutchinson, they had a major bank give them 6 figures. I mean, these local communities realize if they want people to stay there, they have to have some stuff there to do. And the ball field is one of the major draws.
So, absolutely.
So I'm going to make you guys commit to something that you might not want to commit to publicly, but I want to know
What would
I want to know your favorite ballpark, whether it's the field that it is that you like to play or it's the ambiance of the ballpark, but you can't name your own. So, of all the ballparks you've been to in town ball, what is it that you like most about X?
the rookie's going for?
Question's not. There are a lot of choices, and
Yeah.
I will pick one. But
That's why I would almost say I want to pick two: one for ambiance, one for fun, one for field.
Jordan, Minnesota.
Absolutely, I love that
Met
park.
is one of my favorites.
We were
It's
there
just
last year.
absolute Americana at its finest. It's just down the road from where I live. Great guys, love it. And then I think Meesville is a close second. Meesville is a close second for me. Again, Americana, just fantastic Jackwood Field in Meesville.
And you say that is the one thing that this whole organization makes me feel when I'm up here is this is America. This is the epitome of Americana.
Mm-hmm.
Middle America, small town baseball, and these beautiful ballparks. It just screams Americana at every one of the places I go to.
Well, one of my first years on the board, I was really impressed with Red Wings Field. Just the location and, like you said, the ambiance of everything there. And then to go for another field would probably, I'd have to say, probably Putz Field in St. Cloud, as far as the playing
Putz Field.
Putz Field. That goes back to the early 70s too. So,
Named after a man.
Yeah,
he was a president.
Hopefully that wasn't his nickname. Hopefully that was his last name.
It was. It wasn't a Putz.
He was a deck Putz.
That was his name.
That was his name. He was president of our association for about 6 years in the 70s.
Wow, that's cool.
So,
What, Doc?
I'm going to say one that no one will believe just because it was really, really nice before a lot of the stuff started. So when I played, my favorite place to play on, probably because they were really good, we were not, and they were really nice to us, was Arlington, Minnesota. They had come off the state championship, and we went into their park, and they invited us. They had a clubhouse, and our field was totally just dirt. We didn't have an outfield fence. You sat basically on a wooden bench in our field when we started. So you go in there, and it's like Chavez Ravine to me, and it was impeccably kept.
They actually had clubhouses there.
Oh, it was not, it wasn't, it was half the size.
I'm not thinking palatial, but it's, that's one step above just having a dugout.
Yeah. And I just thought it was so cool. I loved playing on it. It was a great, beautiful atmosphere because it was tight and closed in. I'm going to say two fields that I really admire just because of what they have done and what they look like. One of them is my buddy Mark's Dassel Field. I think they were the team that set the bar to say this is what you can do, and other towns have really done a great job of adding to that. In my hometown of Litchfield, their park is absolutely gorgeous.
That was there last year too.
Yeah, they've done a lot in the last when they did it right when they started it. The outside of the park has all this beautiful grass and trees, and I really like that.
Yeah.
So that's.
Okay, now you got to commit.
You're the president, so that's the right way.
No, I agree with Mike. Jordan has the ambiance and the playing surface.
Can't pick the same one. You get to go.
I'm gonna go.
Their field's crazy.
But I am going to go to Cold Spring. Cold Spring, we haven't been there a while, but Cold Spring has the Americana, the history, and they really do a good job with their surface. I'm very encouraged. I think if you heard of Avon,
I was going to say that. Yeah.
is going to be the upcoming one that everybody's going to go and about.
Based on plans that you've heard? that's going to happen?
They're actually done too.
They're done.
Oh, they're done. Okay.
They have the tournament.
And when I was playing, there's an individual there, Pete Schlepper, who just is about just crazy about how his field looks.
I hear a lot of schlepper thrown around in this league.
And he's animate about he's animate about how that surface is, and it is a great playing surface. And now they threw a lot of money around the park, and we're going there in 2 years, so it'll be fun to see.
Well, I look forward to seeing more ballparks here over the next at least 3 years that we have our contract with you folks. Direct certainly loves being involved with you folks, and I mean, this is pure and simple baseball going back as far as the 1800s when it first came around. It's really special, and if anybody's up in Minnesota, I urge you to drive around to some of these small towns and find some of these old ballparks. And games for town ball are what, Wednesdays and Sundays, is it?
Wednesday, Friday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Wednesday, Friday, Sundays.
That's the typical. I think when you have a field that you share with other teams, you'll take it on any night that it's open, whenever you can get on it.
Yeah. So take advantage of that and come and see their great work. It is something to behold, and I absolutely love coming up here for the tournament every year and working the tournament. So thank you all for coming here. I know we've got to get off to the tournament. We got games to play here soon, and we appreciate you coming up.
Can I add one more, Paul?
I guess.
So being that the way the tournament is set up right now, with the first weekend being so vital for us to get in, and you saw some of the rain issues that we dealt with, I think by having you folks involved with us as a corporate sponsor and many other ones that kind of help these guys. I mean, years ago, if we would have got that rain, we would have been playing on those fields if we wouldn't have had the quality products.
Quality products. It does make a huge difference.
To walk on a surface after you get an inch of rain and you don't sink into this line like it was years ago, you wouldn't be playing for that, a long time.
There's a lot of teams that want to do it, but it takes planning and time. And a lot of them, I had a lot of them come up to me last week during all those rains and saying, "Oh, we're looking to do this in 27 or 20." You can see them planning their budgeting out to
they have to get comfortable with it. They've been doing it one way for so long.
Well, that's right.
And they know how that works, so they know, okay, we can't play for 3 days. Well, now you're going to switch to a different clay or a different...
Well, and that's not, but it's not really, you're not excavating out the ag line and putting this in. We're just enhancing. I always use the word enhancing the ag line experience. We're getting rid of the dust. We firm up the surface, so you're getting consistent ball out, because with normal ag line, as the game goes on, the field gets softer in other spots and stays firm in others, so you can't count on a consistent ball out across that surface. Traction is another problem with straight ag line, but you add that dredge in there, and it just totally changes the playability of that ball field and how it handles rain. Certainly the dust situation goes away, which anybody who's dealt with ag line knows is a real joy. Yeah. So, but we appreciate that. But and I enjoy coming up here in the wintertime and doing our educational events. It'd be nice if we could get more teams that come in here, but it's it's tough because another one of our distributors who is also a sponsor for you folks. He talks about how it's tough to get to you guys because everybody's got day jobs. Mm. And his job is to go out and do sales during the day. Well, he can't meet anybody. The only way to meet them is pretty much here at the tournament, or if we do a weekend education event.
It's kind of a good old boys family organization, but the word of mouth, and that's where the corporate sponsorship helps. You guys are helping us out, but that's where we get the word out. The tournament was in Delano, and they had used all your product, and the playing surface was amazing. Yeah. And people go, "Well, where'd you get this stuff?" And that it's going to just mushroom.
Yeah. Well, thank you, guys. Yeah. And good luck with the rest of the tournament.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Inside Edge, brought to you by DuraEdge. Whether you're maintaining a local recreational ball field or something bigger, we're here to help you on your journey to create safer, easier to maintain, and more playable ball fields. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, leave a comment or email us at insideedge@duredge.com. Be sure to follow @Duredge Products on social media for more tips and insights. We'll see you on the next episode.